Let's now fetch one contest information from an API when we click on it. Because right now, we don't go to the server. When we click on a contest, we need to go to the server and ask the server about more information about that contest. For example, its description and eventually any names that were proposed already on this contest. So let's start with an API. We need to go to /contests/ the ID of the contest to look up a contest by ID. Right now, we don't have that. So this is simple. Under API index, let's introduce a new route. This route will be /contests/ a dynamic contest ID. This is how we do it with Express. And once we actually do the request here, the ID that we put in the URL is going to be available as request.params.contestID. So really what I want to do is I want to look up a contest here. Contest equal, I'm going to look it up from contests, which is my object, using this request.params.contestID, and this would give me the contest object. Now, I don't have any extra information about the contest because we're still working with fake data, but let's go ahead and introduce a description field and also fake it with a placeholder. So this way we know that we're actually hitting an API that give me an extra description field, and I'm just going to render the contest itself here in the API. So let's test that. So we have the big data analytics and a placeholder description. On 4, we have free programming books and a placeholder description. So this is good to go. Once we switch to actual data from Mongo, we just need to change the logic inside these API endpoints. So now in our application, we need a place to fetch this information with Ajax. So let me introduce a new file under source. Call this file api.js. This is where we should place all our API logic. So this is the only file that should import the library to fetch from Ajax. And in here, we'll export multiple functions to fetch different things from the API. So our first function would be to fetch a single contest. And this function is going to receive a contest ID, and it will return a promise from Axios to get this API/contests/ the ID of the contest that we're interested in, contest ID. And let's also just return the data from the response. So it's response.data. So we'll go ahead and just export this. Cool. So now in the app.js, right before I set the state to the current contest, how about we fetch the contest first? So let me import everything from the API, which is /API. And then in here, before I set the state, I'll do an API.fetch contest, give that the contest ID that I'm trying to fetch. And then when I have data from this API method, it's going to be the actual contest coming from the server. So I'll just do the same set state call inside in here now. However, instead of looking this up from the state, I could just simply do contest.contestName. And its current contest ID is going to be contest.id. So making sure that we're using the valid information coming from the server. And just doing the current contest ID is going to switch to this view. And this view is just looking up a contest from the state. So what I can do to make this view read the description and everything else in the contest is I can modify the contest's object that I have on the state by copying the current contest object, so it's state.contests. However, the property associated with the current contest ID, so contest.id has a dynamic here, I can set that to the new contest object coming from the server, and that's the one that has the description and everything else. So this way I cache the fetched contest information on the state. And when I start going back and forth, this is going to be an improvement on performance because if I already have a description for a contest, it will be on the state. So I think this is good to go, except we need a semicolon here. Thank you, ESLint. And now inside contest, we can start using more information coming from the API. So I'm going to go ahead and use the description here. And I have a description, which is a string, not using the ID anymore. And I think we're ready to test. Let's check it out. Free programming books.